Have you ever stopped to wonder how your phone unlocks just by looking at it, or how a streaming service just knows exactly what movie you want to watch next? I mean, it really does feel like magic sometimes, right? But it's not. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. We've gotten so used to this stuff. Instant language translation in our pockets. AI that can whip up a mind-blowing image from just a few words. How is any of that even possible? What's the secret sauce?
Well, the answer to all those questions is a concept called deep learning. And don't worry, this isn't going to be some super technical, jargon-filled lecture. The goal here is simple. By the end of this short explanation, you'll totally get the main idea, even if you've never written a single line of code in your life.
So, to really get a handle on what deep learning is, the absolute best way to think about it is to just imagine how a human learns. Specifically, how a little kid learns.
You wouldn't sit a toddler down and give them a lecture like, okay, a cat has 2 pointy ears, 4 legs, a tail, and whiskers. Of course not. What you do is just show them tons and tons of pictures of cats. All different kinds, different colors, different breeds, sleeping, playing, and over time their little brain just gets it. It starts to figure out the pattern of catness all on its own.
And that, right there, perfectly captures the huge shift in thinking. The old way of programming was all about writing out specific, step-by-step rules. But for something as complex as recognizing a cat, well, those rules get crazy complicated fast. Deep learning just flips that whole idea on its head. Instead of giving it rules, we just give the computer the data, thousands, maybe millions of cat pictures, and we let it figure out the patterns for itself.
So yeah, that's really the heart of it. Deep learning is a kind of AI that lets machines learn from examples a lot like we do. It's all about finding those hidden patterns in massive amounts of data, without a person having to spell out every single little rule. Okay, but how does it actually do that? How does a machine build that kind of understanding from scratch? Well, that brings us to the deep part of deep learning. It's all about the power of layers. See, the engine running all of this is something called a neural network, which is actually kind of inspired by the way our own brains are structured. The easiest way to picture it is just as a whole bunch of layers stacked on top of each other, and each layer is full of tiny, super simple decision makers.
Let's walk through an example, say, recognizing a face in a photo. The very first layer doesn't see a face at all. It just sees a bunch of pixels, and its only job is to spot the simplest things, like basic edges and lines. Then the next layer takes those lines and starts combining them into simple shapes, like circles or ovals. The layers after that take those simple shapes and assemble them into more complex things, like an eye or a nose. And finally, after passing through all these layers, the very last one puts all the pieces together and makes the final call. Yep, that's a person.
And that is why we call it deep learning. It's not about how profound or philosophical it is. It's literally about the depth of the network, the fact that it has many, many layers, with each one building a more complex understanding on top of the one before it.
Okay, so this isn't just some abstract, futuristic idea. Let's talk about how this whole layered learning thing is already a massive part of our daily lives. You might actually be surprised how often you're already using it.
That face unlock on your phone? That's a deep neural network that's learned the unique patterns of your face. Those video recommendations you get? That's a system that has learned patterns from how millions of other people watch videos. And when you talk to your voice assistant or see some of that incredible AI-generated art online, yep, you are interacting directly with a deep learning system.
The main takeaway here is pretty simple. This stuff isn't science fiction anymore. It's already here, and it's woven into the tools you use every single day, often without you even noticing.
Which brings us to one last really important question. We know what it is and where it's used, but how does the system actually get so good at what it does? How does it actually get smarter over time?
It all boils down to this really simple but incredibly powerful idea, a learning loop. First, the system sees some data, like a picture of an animal, and it makes a guess. I think that's a cat. Then it gets feedback. It checks against the correct answer. Was it right? If it was wrong, it makes tiny little adjustments to its internal wiring to make it just a little bit more likely to get it right the next time. And then it just repeats that process. Guess, check, adjust, millions and millions of times.
Honestly, it's not all that different from how we learn a new skill, right? Whether you're learning to play the guitar or shoot a basketball. You try something, you see what went wrong, you adjust your technique, and you try again. It's all about repetition and feedback. And that's maybe the biggest idea to hold on to. A deep learning system starts out basically knowing nothing. It isn't born smart. It's like a blank slate that becomes intelligent, purely through the process of learning from all that data.
So at the end of the day, it's not magic at all. It's just a really powerful way of learning from experience, inspired by the very way our own brains work. Which leaves us with a pretty incredible question to think about. Now that we can build machines that learn, what are the most important things we should teach them next?